Morning, everyone. This is the Ad Hoc Budget Committee special meeting of the Kentucky Public Pension Authority, January 23rd, 2026. Shall we have the legal statement, Ms. Hale?
Yes. This is a special called meeting of the Kentucky Public Pensions Authority Ad Hoc Budget Committee. This meeting is being broadcast via video teleconference pursuant to Kentucky Revised Statute Section 61.826 and may be viewed by the public at the Kentucky Public Pensions Authority offices at 1260 Louisville Road, Frankfort, Kentucky. It is also being broadcast to the public via Facebook. If you are speaking and not appearing by video, please identify yourself before talking. Please ensure that you are on camera when making or seconding a motion or casting a vote. In the event the video or audio broadcast is interrupted, we will attempt to reestablish a connection. If a connection cannot be reestablished within 30 minutes, the meeting will be adjourned and rescheduled to another date.
Thank you very much. Ms. Rankin, roll call, please.
Yes, sir. Mr. O'Meara?
Here.
And Mr. Lane?
Here.
Thank you.
And do we have any public comment today?
No, sir, no public comment today.
Next would be the approval of meeting minutes from October 30th. Do I have a motion to approve?
I'll make that motion to
And
approve.
I'll second. Do we have any discussion? Any corrections, clarifications? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Those are approved. And so now we'll go to hybrid percent discussion. And Mr. Lamb, would you want to take us through that, please?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. O'Meara. Thank you to...
Sorry, if you will give me a moment, it looks like I'm having issues with this document.
Okay.
But as you're talking, you go ahead and introduce and I will get something up real quick.
Perfect. I wanted to express my appreciation for all of you attending this meeting on a Friday before Snowmageddon. And I look forward to the conversations that we're going to have. When Sherry gets the document ready for presentation, I'm going to walk through what would be presented at the KPPA board meeting if and when this hybrid percentage gets finalized for next fiscal year. And so this is kind of the background of how the hybrid percentage came about, the methodology that we follow, and how we validate that the amounts are accurate. So if you want to go to the next page, Sherry. This is just a quick history of what statute requires us to allocate costs, or requires KPPA to allocate costs between C and K. And beginning with the 22 fiscal year, the KPPA board, based on a work group recommendation, came up with a hybrid method. Prior to that, all admin costs were spread among the systems based on membership only, is my understanding. Administrative costs were. So that committee or that work group, they wanted this to be simple, equitable, and consistent. I've added since then that the method that we try to do is also to be transparent. And I still like the fact that it needs to be simple and uncomplicated in order to create this every year. So this hybrid method results in one percentage, which we call the hybrid percentage, that gets applied to the CERS and KRS in allocating non-specific administrative costs throughout the year. So there are some specific costs. For example, the CEO salaries for C and K get charged directly to C and K. Legal counsel for C and K get charged directly to C and K. And there are some other costs, such as election costs specific to the C election and the K election, that get charged directly to C and K. But all other administrative costs get allocated based on this one calculated hybrid percentage. The board or a work group, if the KPPA board decides to incorporate one, reevaluates the method and the resulting hybrid percentage every fiscal year. And so then once that percentage is determined, the individual C board and the individual K board will determine the allocation of those administrative costs to their individual plans that they administer. So for example, the C non-hazardous and the C hazardous plan, that the overall percentage is then allocated based on however those boards want to do that. Both boards currently use membership in allocating it down to their plan level. So the next slide kind of goes how the percentage itself is calculated. If you'd like to page down, Sherry, perfect. So first, because the hybrid percentage is made up of three different things: membership, assets under management, and then we split costs 50-50. So I try to confirm those things from various official documents from KPPA, including the ACFR and the SAFR. And then we have the work group originally categorize these various costs into large areas, typically $100,000 or more. And then we kind of remove the system specific costs. And then we work with this work group this year to evaluate those categories and then calculate a hybrid percentage. The next slide. Oh, go ahead. Nope. Okay. The next slide shows the historical hybrid percentage since fiscal year 22 when it first was implemented through last year's hybrid percentage with 2026, which is being utilized this fiscal year. And it was 64.35% for C and 35.65% for K. And then you could see the individual breakdowns between the plans themselves. The next slide, which is in here as intended to validate the numbers in calculating the hybrid percentage and what I would show to the KPPA board. But basically, I take membership numbers from the SAFR. I've circled them in yellow. I put them in a little Excel chart that gives you the membership calculation by system. So the C system has 66.46% of the membership, and the K system has 33, or the KRS system, which includes KERS and SPRS, has 33.54% of the membership. Next, I take the administrative costs in total on the next slide. Did I skip one? Oh, I skipped one. I apologize. Thank you, Sherry. Next, I take assets under management by system. So this comes from the ACFR. It shows the total portfolio for the C and C hazardous, for the K hazardous, and SPRS, and calculate that. And that little Excel chart at the top shows that the CERS system in total has 67.39% of the assets under management, and KERS has 32.61%. The next slide is total admin costs that were allocated in the prior year to the C system and the K system. I have to then adjust that cost. So in total, there's $46.5 million in administrative costs. The next slide reconciles that and eliminates insurance-related costs, which is the bottom number down at the bottom. Salaries, for example, for the CEOs. Professional services include general counsel costs specific to the systems, and then those other operating costs or other costs that are specific to the system. So we come up with a number of $42.9 million, which is the unallocated administrative costs as of 6/30/2025. That is the number that we're going to apply a hybrid percentage to, or we're going to use to calculate the hybrid percentage that gets employed in fiscal year 27. So doing that, the next slide shows how that is calculated. And all of those numbers, if you look at the top, the membership, those came from the SAFR. Those are the percentage we talked about. The assets under management are up above. Those are the percentage that we talked about. On the left-hand side are the large categories that have been divided up. Some of the personnel costs have been divided up based on categories that most KPPA staff are allocated based on membership. There are some specific groups that have been broken out and allocated based on assets under management and 50-50 costs. And you can see them there. And at the bottom of that total column, you'll see that $42.9 million. That is the unallocated admin costs that we are using to calculate the hybrid percentage for fiscal year 27. And so this was my original calculation. This is what I showed back in October. 64.65% was going to go to the C system. 35.35% was going to go to the KRS. In that meeting, we discussed that the compliance officer who was included in that KPPA investments personnel costs of $2 million, I believe that meeting we concluded that that person should be allocated 50-50 and moved up because that position is now doing more than investments. It's doing entity-wide compliance and risk. And so based on that, if you go down to the next page, I've adjusted the hybrid percentage for moving that around. And so I've highlighted that in yellow. I've put the compliance officer in there. You can see that the KPPA investments personnel costs went down from 2 million to 1.8 million, and that cost went up to $2 million in the KPPA execs and compliance officer line item. That adjusted the CERS hybrid percentage down by 0.06% to 64.59%. And 35.41 is the KRS percentage. And I put a little note over there on the top about what that cost would be if we spent about $45 million in unallocated admin costs next year. Also, in that October meeting, we were asked to go and have meetings with various groups, including communications, IT, and investments. We've looked at the methodology that we've applied. We've spoken with these various groups, and based on those discussions, I've made a recommendation in this presentation on that. And so if you want to go to the next slide, this slide is blank, but I have concluded that I would take the communication costs and split them 50-50. The communications personnel costs, split them 50-50 based on my discussions with the communications personnel. The communications non-personnel costs are pretty minimal, and most of their costs are buried in the IT costs. So for example, they have software, they have a license to run our website. Those costs are incorporated into the IT budget, but the personnel costs of the communications department have been split out and allocated 50-50. And so that's the next line item that I have there. And the little note over there says, by doing so, this decreased the CERS hybrid percentage by 0.21% and increased the KRS percentage by 0.21%. And that on $45 million of unallocated admin costs, that would be about $95,000. So I'd like to pause here and see if there's any questions on how we concluded on why communications should be split 50-50. And in the meeting today, I have Miss Amy Fields, who is the Director of Communications, and she would be here also to be available to answer any questions that anyone may have regarding this conclusion that I've made.
Any questions for Amy or for Mike related to communications? All right, thank you. We can move along.
Awesome. Okay. The next one, we decided to talk to the IT group, and we discussed various costs with the IT group, not only their personnel costs, but we also talked about the other costs that are buried in IT costs, such as software, hardware, cybersecurity type policies. There are contractors that they use to program LOB, et cetera, et cetera. And through that discussion with IT, we concluded that those costs are really driven by the membership. And so the more members that a system has, then the more complexities there are with programming, for exceptions, for generalities, for software costs, et cetera, et cetera. There are some specific examples where, yeah, it could be really specific to a system, and there may be some examples where it's 50-50. But in general, the majority, based on my discussions with IT, the majority of what they work on a day-to-day basis and the costs that they are required to employ in their budget related to those large categories are really driven by membership. So again, I'd like to pause at this point and allow the committee members or others to have questions. Joining me today is Ms. Holly Thompson, who represents the IT group and does a lot of their budgeting and has been involved in the discussions that I've had with them. And she's here to answer any questions if there are some.
Any hands up? Anyone want to ask any questions related to IT cost? All right, I think we can proceed. Go ahead, Mike.
Well, thanks. This is going Easier than I thought, but now here comes the challenging one. So a lot of this discussion originated with the investment fees that, you're right. The investment fees that are allocated to the individual systems outside of the hybrid percentage. So I was approached at one point to say, hey, let's talk about the costs. As we calculated earlier, the CRS system makes up 68% of the assets under management. And because of that, there was some discussion about, the KRS system maybe getting a benefit from the value of C. Through my discussions with the investment team, and it's definitely a given fact that both systems benefit by being combined. So if there's 70% of the assets under management under C and 30% under K, you now have 100%. You have a bigger ball to play with. You have a bigger ball to negotiate with. And in doing so, both systems benefit by combining and negotiating the dollar values that are being invested with various managers. There are, yes, if these systems were separated, one system may not be able to get a better break because they're smaller, but in general, overall, by combining the systems and negotiating together with larger dollar amounts, both systems benefit. And it is very difficult to determine how much one would not benefit if they were not investing together. That's the conclusion that I came up with. And from my perspective, this is really a personal perspective from the accounting side. I'm not involved in the investments. I work closely with Steve and his team. I work closely with the investment committees, but in general, I really feel that the investment fees themselves and however they're negotiated is really separate from the hybrid percentage. The hybrid percentage is intended to allocate administrative costs to various systems and should have no place in a discussion with investment fees. That's what I've concluded. I definitely understood the question. I appreciated the question, and that's the intent of this committee, is to every year evaluate the hybrid percentage and the methodology and how it's calculated. So with that, I've also like to pause at this time. Mr. Willer is here to answer any questions we may have if there's some more discussion that needs to be had on the investment fees and the relation to the hybrid percentage.
Well, if I could say a word or two there, I spent over 50 years in the investment world, and the entirety of that world and time operates under what we call AUM, assets under management. And there are break points that do exist. The staff, when we hire a new manager, they go through and legal tracks it. What negotiations are existed to get that break fee met, and it still falls back on assets under management, though. And so I agree with Mike and his analysis from the accounting that there's just no other way that's fair to or accurate. I'm not even going to use the word fair, accurate to allocate those fees.
Any other questions or comments? All right, Mike. Well, show us the results of these assumptions, please.
You're muted,
Right?
Mr. Williams.
Yep, thank you. Sorry about that. On the next slide is the calculated draft 2027 hybrid percentage. So the three columns in the middle there represent the changes. So there was the original amount, then there was the amount taken in the compliance officer, and then the amount taken into communications. So the final number would be 64.38% for the C system, 35.62% for the KRS systems. The 59.18 and the 5.21, those are just my estimations based on membership, but the amounts that we would be voting on today or discussing today is 64.38 and 35.62. I've compared that to the fiscal year 26 amount that's currently in place. It shows you the difference. So the far right column, the C system would go up 0.03%, the KRS system would go down minus 0.03%. That's the calculation that's been accumulated based on the methodology that's been deployed, the changes that have been discussed with the compliance officer in the communications department, and keeping the IT costs based on membership. And I need to apologize to Dominique. Dominique, I didn't see you on my screen when I mentioned the IT costs, and I only saw Holly, so I apologize for not letting them know that you were here as well.
Oh, that's okay. Thank you, though.
So if there's, I'm happy to answer questions, field some more comments. But at the end of the day, what I would propose or I would like to see is a recommendation for this 64.38% hybrid percentage for C and 35.62% be moved forward to the KPPA board for approval to be implemented on July 1 for fiscal year 27.
I'll make that motion that the hybrid percentage calculation on page 15 of this document, this draft, be forwarded to the KPPA board for approval.
I'll second. So all in favor? We
Aye.
agree? All right. So that's the final 64.38 and the 35.62. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yes.
Okay.
I think Ms. Hampton has her hand up.
Yes.
Well, I was going to say after the vote, I just wanted to first thank Bill and Mike for inviting me to participate. I appreciate all the work that goes in this, Mike, and I know it's the entire organization. When you talk about you had to talk to these people and understand actually how things are executed. So thank you for that. It's important to all of the members of KPPA, CERS, and KRS. So again, thanks for inviting me to participate and to listen. And back to Bill.
Well, I also want to thank everyone involved. I think we're doing as we put forward, and that's to review each year. Good discussions, small changes, but good discussions as far as how to tweak or how to go forward with these allocations. Want to thank Mike for a great presentation and all the work that he did behind the scenes, as well as the other staff in analyzing their expenses and answering his questions. So just a great big shout out to everyone involved. I think the process worked and good with the outcome.
Thank you. I want to thank everyone that I've spoken with multiple times, as well as my staff for supporting this calculation and the comments. This was definitely a more challenging review year for this percentage, but they were good comments and they really allowed us to dig deeper and make sure that the methodology is sound. So I do appreciate that as well.
All right. Well, then with that, we're down to number 8, which is schedule next meeting date and time. And I don't believe that would be necessary. Is that correct, Mike?
Yeah. So the next meeting that we would need to be when we start creating the budget for next year, the admin budget for 2027, but that will wait until we get a legislative budget number. Right.
And we need a budget in the legislature first.
Yes,
so.
Correct.
All right. Anything else, Ms. Hale? Have I missed anything?
No, sir, you did not miss anything.
All right. Well, with that, I will thank everyone again for your participation. Wish everyone the best of luck over the next week across the state, and we will adjourn the meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you.